Hey guys, I'm Nick, and this week we will take a look at procedural textures created with noise in Redshift in Houdini. But also, I want to share with you a few tips that actually were my mistakes that made my 3D design learning process a bit longer than I wanted. And to keep it short and simple, because I already tried to record this tutorial and it was like 40 minutes me speaking and bragging only about that first point, which is why we have Pinterest opened here. So, long story short, I'm delegating like 90% of my client work to the fellow freelancers that I hire. And I don't require a portfolio or something, but I do require them to do a small, of course, paid test work for me. And test work for me is basically creating some sort of 3D podium cosmetics stuff. I think we should yeah. So what I want to get from the person that wants to work for me is the sense of style, the sense of aesthetic, and more or less understanding how to use materials and lights. So it might sound basic, but to keep it super short, if you want to master something, try to eliminate as much variables as possible. And if you are looking and comparing your renders to the renders of some cool and experienced guys on Instagram, you are comparing your render, which consists of your object, your light, your textures, your camera settings, your composition in the frame. You're comparing that to someone else's work. And my idea is, if you are not getting that complete look for now, try to create in shades of gray or something like this. Basically, when you eliminate the color variable from your goal, from your target, you are left with less ways to fuck things up. Another option is to keep them in one color, not like palette, but in the tones of one color, like something like this, or something like, I don't know, this maybe, like this, for example, and so on, so on. Try to actually like copy something from Pinterest. Don't go crazy like in your creative process of actually like coming up with some fresh ideas, because that's another point where you can fuck up. That saved me a lot of time when I realized that I should actually focus on something so simple that I actually master the lights separately from the colors, for example. And I know that light and color, of course, goes very tightly together in 3D. But yeah, the main idea, and again, it takes me almost 5 minutes already. If you are feeling that you are not getting it, you are not creating that render that is inside your head, that you are just imagined, or you found something similar on Instagram, try to work with the shades of gray. Just eliminate that color variable from your render task. Work with lights, work with composition, work with textures. Alright, so that was our powerful intro that I hope motivates you to explore new stuff and practice more, because unfortunately this all comes only with the practice, and practice is the hours you spend, the quality hours you spend inside the software doing 3D, doing practices, doing tutorials, doing like your own kind of challenges, you know. But again, it's better to challenge yourself in one narrow field than to challenge yourself to do a, I don't know, Doctor Strange shot, or some, I don't know, Titanic shot, or whatever VFX shot you want, or challenge yourself to do Man with Machine stuff when you opened Houdini 2 weeks ago. That being said, we are here with this super simple scene, and I have created these 5 different materials today for the sake of time, because no one wants actually a 2-hour long tutorial. I will talk about 2 of these materials that I like the most. Other 3 materials are here in this project file, And also, guys, there will be a poll if I should do a part 2 of this tutorial, or no one actually wants to know about procedural texturing, which is sad. And the last thing before we jump into materials and the scene creation, Danny Larson created amazing tutorial about transferring your Houdini creations into Unreal Engine, and you can render it all basically real time. It's really clear, straight to the point tutorial for absolute beginners. I am absolute beginner in Unreal Engine. Link to his tutorial will be in the description. Go check it out. It's absolutely free, and then he's super talented. He's in our Discord server. He responds to any questions, and he's hyped up to create more tutorials for you guys. So definitely go check his tutorial and let's support his content. Alright, finally, after all the intros, what do we got here? So let's go one by one. Of course, let's check, for example, our walls, which are basically two grids with a transform, right? So it's grid 1, grid 2, merged, and like moved it a bit to the X and Z side. Then we have our cube, which is basically a cube with a poly bevel. We have beveled these sides just a tiny bit, 0.01, 3 divisions. And for our fragrance, a bit more complicated, but still, let me start with a box. Then I created the group name set to seams and group type set to edges. And here I can select this one, this little cursor, and I can go and select all the edges, basically any edge I want. Yeah, I don't want any of them because I already done them. If we drop in the UV, flatten, and then press Ctrl 2 or Command 2 if you're on Mac, and here you can select top, but we don't want top view, we want UV viewport, and you will see your UVs. Now we can also click on the UV flatten and select save here and save texture UV to image. This should be something like 2048 if you want 2K texture. Here you can select PNG, and then you just like set the path with this button. So let's get back with a Control or Command 1. Basically, Command 1 is one window, Command 2 is 2 windows, Command 3 or Control 3 is 3 windows, and Control 4 is 4 windows. Very cool little shortcut. So after we have done our UVs, then we can apply bevels, so poly bevel. Then I apply material. My material is called bottle material. We also have divider material and cap material, but we will talk about them later. A little bit of transform to rotate it 15 degrees by y-axis. Then we have this tube, super small tube here. We add polyfill with a surface offset and tangent strength set to 0, but deform patch is checked, and fill mode is quadrilateral. God damn it, quadrilateral grid. Quadrilateral grid. So yeah, it gives us a pretty good grid here. What do we want here? We don't want any UVs because this is actually static kind of like style frame thing. That's why I'm not doing UVs. I've done UVs here because I want to apply that label with the numbers, and also we will need this UV on the bottle for some of the noises, but those noises can also work without UVs, so it's up to you to apply them or not. But here for this cap, we also want to drop a poly bevel, but we want to check ignore flat edges, coplanar incident polygons, and maximum normal angle should be something that you should play with, right? Because if I go like set it to something like 159, you see we don't have any beveled edges. And if I set it to be something like 0 or 1, you can see that we have some edges beveled that should not be actually beveled. But if it's something around like 60, 50, you can see that we actually have just this and that edge beveled. That's the thing that we want. So then applyment material and then transform. And then of course our cap is exact the same thing with its own cap material and transformed, translated to its final position here. In this tutorial, I think this setup in terms of geometry is super simple. and I don't want to waste too much time on it, but focus more on the lights and materials. So for this one, we want to restart the render, right? And I want to show you or tell you the thing about the lights. So I'm actually a fan of using just one HDRI because that gives you overall decent light that is good for showcasing your product, showcasing your simulation, if it's something like a rigid body or something. Overall, it's a decent light, which is very natural. It feels familiar because it's basically captured from our real world. And if you struggle with lights, I suggest you going with HDRI for all of your practicing works. If you wanna go a bit further, so here is the thing. With this one, I wanted specifically a bit of more like a dramatic, dark light, which is very directional, which shines just on the part of our geometry here. And as you can see, I have two lights. So let me remove our key light, and this, I assume this is our fill light. And I actually created this gobo, or like the texture that you can see right now here. If you select the light type to be spot and select use texture here in the color, you can go into the texture tab and add your texture here in the file name. Color space set to row, custom gamma 1, and I have just rotated it 90 degrees. And that's basically it. That's how I get these grid looking shadows. This intensity is set to 10. It's just to subtly fill the scene, because if I remove that and turn on only my kind of key light that shines on directly, super directly on our fragrance bottle, you can see that it's all like super dark here, and I wanted at least a bit of something there. With this turned on, there are a few properties that you might want to tweak. So this softness effects gobo should be checked, and then if I set my softness to be 0.1, you can see that our gobo is much softer shadows. If 0.3, it's it's actually barely visible. So I would say 0.1 or 0.0.5. Something like that. You should aim for something like that. Cone angle of the spotlight, it controls. It actually controls our gobo too, because you can see that you can narrow or widen that spotlight. I left it at 29.4, basically 30. But yeah, that's about these lights. And for this one, they are very directional. We actually want to make this gobo a bit softer, 0.15, or 0.01. I like this one more. So again, very directional, very dramatic, very focusing on that product, and that was the goal. Your HDRI is more likely to be an overall good light that shows your product in a kind of neutral emotion, if I can say it like that. But also, like, another topic that you might want to exercise with or experiment with is actually trying to set the lights in a way that they create the mood, they create the story. You can tell so much just with your light setups. If you want me to create more examples of the light setups, or just share with you them in a form of like overview of other works, just let me know in the comments or in the Discord. I'll do that. But the one thing that I also should mention is never have I ever seen a good render that uses like 10 area lights, right? Just a thing that if you are a beginner, you might fall into that trap of using multiple lights when you're trying to isolate that light, and you are like, oh, this little tiny corner needs a bit more light, and you add that light and you mask out it somehow. But yeah, that's most likely will just mess up your whole composition. All right, and for the cameras, so what I'm using here is bokeh and color controls. I up the exposure. Basically that's what I did. I'm just tweaked a bit the color controls, the exposure, contrast. Yeah, the bokeh, I think the bokeh is correct. I think so. Yeah, so now we can try doing this breakdown for our materials. So we have these 3 materials. For now, let me just remove this this fragrance bottle there, and also let me remove the bokeh for now. Yeah, hope the settings will remain the same. All right, so bokeh removed, and we can go dive inside. As you can see here, the wall and the box have same material. It's this sort of a plaster looking material, or sort of concrete. So what I'm doing here is using one noise as sort of a very subtle base. Let me just plug this into the diffuse color, and you probably won't see any sort of difference in coloring. Let me also visualize and render only this part here. Maybe you could see a bit of like different color patches here and there, but rarely. Also, I have this noise, which has much more of these patches. And what I'm doing here is I'm using RS color layer to blend them, using the difference blend mode and mask set to 0.481. So in the result, I plug that result into the reflection roughness, because I have my color set to this sort of a gray something. I think it's even like the default material. And then I have the same setup with 2 noises that I plug into the bump map to get this look, you know. Just to visualize, I have this sort of, let me just remove these. I have this very tiny displaced turbulence noise with an overall scale of 0.1, and then I mix it with a sort of, again, very subtle noise, because we have also added a brightness, more brightness here, because if I set it to be 0, not 0.5 as it was, it's that same displaced turbulence, but scale is set to 2 right now, and yeah, 0.5 brightness, which pairs well with the blend mode set to overlay and mask to 0.54. Now this all gives us bump input. This all gives us pretty uniform these little bumps, but you see where we have that big noise, those bumps are a bit more irregular and a bit more sharper and a bit smaller, I think. We don't need this here. We want to select this out color to be reflection roughness, and yeah, that's what I plug into our walls and into our boxes. Cool. Now let's enable our fragrance bottle again and go inside our material network, and let's go through this setup. So you will see a lot of noises, and I will do my best to just plug them into the diffuse channel so you see what's happening there, what these noises actually look like. Even if they are not plugged into the diffuse channel, they might be plugged into the bumps, into the reflections, yeah, all the stuff there. So for this marble material, I know that it's not like 100% marble, it's more like a stylized marble, but still I think it looks cool, and I think it definitely has its place in your saved material collections. We start with 2 noises. Let me plug this one. This is basically white and very light gray. Let me switch to the black, but still you can see that it's very subtle, like super subtle noise, which type set to fractal, complexity to 5, amplitude gain to 2.4, frequency scale to 3, distortion to 5. You will have your own values here, right? Because it all very depends. But still, if we select this overall scale to something like 30, you can see these patches. But yeah, I just want I don't want that variation at all. I want just like something very minimal. Maybe 5 would be good to go, but yeah, 2, even 2 is good. Some really super subtle color variation. But then again, I want these little thingies that resemble marble And here we have that same RS noise, but noise type set to turbulence and complexity set to 5, amplitude gain 1, frequency scale 1.96, distortion 2.27, distortion scale to 6, and coordinates are set to overall scale 7, with the colors being black and white, but then in the bias, in the remap, it's actually set to 0.8, because at 0, not 0.5 as its default, you can see we have too many of these dark spots. So to kind of remove them a bit, we drag the slider to the right side to the 0.76, 0.82, 0.8 is kind of like my sweet spot here. And then in the RS color layer, we can blend these two using the multiply node, and the multiply node is crucial here because let me show you. If we plug that into diffuse color, again, we can set this multiply to darken, or nope, actually we can set this multiply to subtract, and then we can get sort of a darker marble look with a white noise, these little thingies here, you know. But yeah, I think we will go with the multiply. With the multiply, that's being set to 1. Yeah, I like that better. For the reflections, we have another noise, which is maximum noise and type set to displace turbulence. If I set it into our diffuse color channel, you can see, if I remove that brightness, you can see that we have a bit of, again, your default turbulent noise. Works pretty good with the roughness, but the main thing is that we are not using this roughness. We are not actually seeing this roughness, and I will talk about that a bit later. For the bump map, again, RS noise, fractal. Let me plug that into the diffuse. Something like this, but again, bump map will get a lot of additional bumps, a lot of additional details from this noise, which might be looking sort of like a low res for you, but yeah, if I here in the bump map, if I set it to be 1 and reconnect that texture to the input, here you can see how much actual detail this noise has. So yeah, 0.05, 0.005 is what I want here in the height field parameter to be. We have our we need our diffuse color back, we have our reflection roughness, our bump input here, and let me render it out again. So yeah, we have our bottle material, bottom mat actually. So now talking about this part here, right? I created this texture in Photoshop, which is named label 06, and it's grayscale. I needed to scale it -1 because it was kind of mirrored. So that's why I needed to do this -1 scaling in both axes and then realigning it into the center of our box. But here we have our material blender that allows us not only blender colors as our RS color layer allows us to do, but here we can actually, it's kind of like a mixed material in Octane Render. So I have my base material, which in this case, it's this material, and this material is basically RS noise plugged into the bump because I want some sort of bumps like you can see here, and then it's just a preset. This preset is set to be iron and a bit of coating though. So it's basically iron with a bit of that noise. But what I want here is I plug that label into the base color material, and we can name it just so everyone is on the same wave, label mat. So this is bottle mat, this is label mat. So this label mat goes into the base color of the material blender, and bottle mat goes into this layer 1, and here layer color is our bottle material, but blend color is our texture of our label, which has these numbers and this border in black, and everything else is white. So it means that all these black parts, black label and black border, will receive this material, which is label material, and all the other parts will receive this bottle material. So also, because it's grayscale, why not to attach the bump map here and then plug that bump map into the bump map input of the bottle material, not the bottle mat, the bottle material. And the material blender's output goes into the surface. Of course, I want the same cap as this material just for this example. So I just grab my bottle mat and I drag this out color to the surface of the cap material. Divider material is just iron, I think. But about this material here, actually, there's a thing. If I go to my bottle mat, I added quite a lot of coating, because coating is that, it's basically that layer of transparent coating that prevents the marble of getting any sort of damage or dust or I don't know what, but you can see it in all the fancy furniture that's made of marble. So that's about this material, this marble material. And I hope you're still here, still watching. I'm not sure if you should copy all the parameters, because I am always against copying the parameters from the tutorial that you are watching, because I think just recreating it's more fun, and it's actually like challenges you to solve the problem. And I'm just guiding you through that. I'm not gonna solve the problem for you. But anyhow, we are at our second material. Let me just drag and drop these cap and bottle materials. Bottle bump goes into the bump map. Bottle surface goes into the surface. And cap material, of course, goes here into the surface. So this is a mix of two materials, plastic and glass. And I don't know why, but I'm so in love adding the bump maps to the glass. I don't know, but it looks like some crystallized rocks or something. I don't know, but yeah, I really like that. Let me briefly colorize these boxes so we know what's where. So what do we have here? Of course, starts with noise, right? And we have this material from the preset that's called tinted glass. Roughness set to 0.483. We are not using a texture for roughness here, but we have subsurface here, and transmittance color is set to this kind of teal color. Absorption scale is set to 1, scatter scale set to 0. Subsurface multiple scattering is set to 0 here, but yeah, we have this RS noise, which is set to fractal, complexity 6, distortion 2, distortion scale 1, and scale is set to 30, overall scale is set to 2. And you kind of balance, the more the overall scale, the less the scale should be, or the more the scale, the lower the overall scale. I mean, it's vice versa. So yeah, we add a bump map. In this case, height scale is set to 0.02, and then it goes into this bump input in the overall channel. Then we have our another material, which is basically a plastic preset, this plastic. I updated the roughness and the color. And then we have our RS ramp, which is gradient, which goes just vertically. And we have our material blender here. And again, we have our base material. We have our layer 1. And layer 1 color is our plastic material. But blend color is our RS ramp, which determines when these two will blend together. So you can see, as I'm dragging this little slider, you can see how this top part becomes translucent because it actually receives another material. That's how you can basically mix these two materials. And yeah, of course, speaking about the bump map, just take a look how flat and how, of course, we don't have that that double layered glass, right? But still, I mean, this is without the bump map and this is with the bump map, and look how beautiful the glass and the bump map actually looks. So then it goes the same way that it was in the previous material. We have the material blender, we have the material, which in this case is aluminum or aluminium, depends on where you're from. But basically, that same label, that same texture determines where we should go with our first material blender, which is green glass and green plastic. And when we need to go with aluminum material for the label. Same applies to the bump map. Basically, yeah, the same thing that in the previous material setup. And for the cap, it's actually that marble that we used before, but the only difference is that in the noises I'm using two shades of green or teal color. For the one noise, those are those teal colors. For the second noise is just like black and white colors, and then in the RS color layer I'm using multiply to get this look, and this goes into the diffuse color. Then we have our bump map, which is also just a noise, which is a fractal noise, and yeah, it goes into our cap. One extra thing that I wanted to share with you is this GitHub repository with all the OSL materials, open shading language materials for Redshift that I found, and I want to show you how easy it is to actually use them. So let's remove this, drag our bottle and cap materials here. So this is our cap. It should be just plain black with a bit of roughness. And here we have our surface and bump map. Really hope that it won't crash. Yeah, good. So here's the deal. This particular one needs this UVW transform, but you can drop RSOSL and then you can go here, click on that one, and here in the resources, I have my Redshift OSL shaders, the folder that I have downloaded, and there are so many of different OSL presets or kind of like snippets of code, and this one is actually called noise color, and you can like kind of control it with this UVW transform. Then you can remap that range and do a color correction, and yeah, then it creates this beautiful swirly result. Really dig this one. It's absolutely free for everyone to download and check it out. I encourage you to check that out because there are so many different useful presets. You will definitely find something that you will want to explore. But yeah, please let me know if this breakdown was helpful. If not, I can do a kind of sort of a live version of this, rebuilding these shaders live. But again, I don't want you to copy the parameters. I want you to encourage you to experiment with the noises in order to replicate textures. Especially noises are super powerful for bump maps and roughness maps, as well, maybe combined with ambient occlusion maps for dirt and stuff. But yeah, really hope that this week's tutorial was useful for you. I'm truly glad to see every one of you in our Discord server, in our cozy place. If you have any questions, I will be there to help you out with anything, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!